Security Breach is easily the most controversial Five Nights at Freddy's game, for many reasons. But probably the biggest reason is its lore, specifically the canon ending. We've had a game, a DLC that's basically a game, an interactive novel, and an entire book series, and yet every ending has something that contradicts its canonicity. But I think I have a pretty good idea on what the canon ending is now. And in the end, I realized just how much Help 1 and 2 connects to Security Breach. So strap in and let me show you what I think the canon ending of Security Breach and Help 1 and 2 is. And also, obviously, this is just a theory. I completely understand not agreeing with it, just don't be rude about it. Anyways, this was originally going to be a transition to Help 1 and 2, but it became way more important to this video than I thought it was, and I basically discovered something new in Help 1 and 2, and it could be huge. So anyways, let's just get to Security Breach. So what is the canon ending of Security Breach? Well, the usual idea that I see is that Gracefully does the 3 Princess Quest games to free Vanny, they leave, they come back for some reason, trap the Mimic, and then Help 1 and 2 and Ruin happen. And this makes sense on the surface. I mean, there's a Headless Freddy in Fragile Blast, there's an ending in Help 1 and 2 that's also Princess Quest. Princess Quest is the only ending without a comic page, it's the only 3-star Security Breach ending, and the arcade machines in Ruin seem to be beaten. But there's a few issues I have with that idea. First, the Freddy in Fragile Blast is labeled as Prototype Glamrock Freddy, and the design shows this. He has a thinner lightning bolt, and his bracelet spikes are longer and sharper. Now, he does have Monty's claws, which means he also presumably had Chica's voice box and Rox's eyes, but there's a Security Breach patch 12 hours before Ruin, and it would have been very easy for Cyril to just add a prototype stamp to Freddy's foot. I mean, it would make it way easier to understand, but that's not the only problem I have. Or about Burntrap, or about Vanny being in Help 1 and 2. So there's only really one other ending that could easily be canon, and that's the Burntrap ending. So what's stopping that ending from being canon? Well, there's Burntrap not being able to come to the Mimic, there's the Burntrap ending comic page, and there's the Burntrap room not being collapsed. So let's start with Burntrap becoming the Mimic, which should be impossible since he gets slipped up by the Tangle Blob, which I'm just going to call the Blob from now on, at the end of the boss fight. But what if I told you that Burntrap becoming the Mimic was already practically impossible? Yeah, really. While everyone agrees that the Mimic's left hand is Burntrap's left hand, too, that's pretty much where the similarities in their designs end. Now, the arms are kinda similar, but Burntrap's shoulders and arms seem to be spring-lock arms, while the Mimics seem to be regular ender arms. The right hand is obviously different, and that's absolutely intentional. The only other similarity is the left calf, which on the Mimic seems to be spring-locks, but with some metal ripped off. But if this was Burntrap, both calves and the left thigh, as well as the right thigh presumably, would look like this. But they aren't. They're more what you'd see with normal endoskeletons. The shoulders are different from the springlock shoulders on Burntrap, and the spinal column is entirely different. The point is, this is more than just a slight design change like Roxy or Monty. This is either a different character, or Cyril just changed the Mimic's design because fuck it. But moving on from that, let's look at Burntrap's room not being collapsed. Now frankly, I don't have an actual lore reason for this one, but lore isn't the only important part of a FNaF game. There is one other extremely important part of a FNaF game that some people will only play the game for actually, and that is, you guessed it, gameplay. You see, having Burntrap's room accessible as it is in Security Breach, at least mostly, would be really cool for players to see, and it would be a lot more convenient than having the player go to the office and around instead. And I kinda lied about not having a lore explanation for this one, because if something even similar to the Burntrap ending actually happened, pretty much none of the sinkhole would be how we see it in Ruin. In the ending cutscene for the Burntrap ending, the entire room is in smoke and flames, and the first part of the sinkhole is on fire and collapsing, which probably means that this storage room with Candidate would be very crispy to say the least. Now this might seem like evidence for the Princess Quest ending, but actually Burntrap's rooms are smoking and burned, which means the burners were canonically used, which potentially means that Scott and Steele could have wanted to support the Burntrap ending while not sacrificing more lore hints. But instead of moving on to the comic pages, how about I just drop the main theory on you now? What if there were 2 canon endings of Security Breach? Those being the Burntrap ending, then the Princess Quest ending. That might sound crazy, but it's actually possible. You see, after the Burntrap ending, the blob tunnels out, but it's still there during Ruin, which seems to take place a long time after Security Breach, because of Cassie calling the Pizzaplex this old place. What if it didn't immediately tunnel out? And you might think Princess Quest is impossible if the blob tunneled out, potentially destroying the machines, but no, actually. Princess Quest 1 is in Rox's Salon, 2 is in the West Arcade, and 3 is obviously in Fragile Blast. We don't see the West Arcade in Ruin, so we don't know how ruined it is, but it's the furthest from the sinkhole, so it probably wouldn't be destroyed, at least for a while. Roxy's Salon is actually in amazing shape in comparison to the rest of the Pizzaplex in Ruin, so that's not really an issue. But what about Fragile Blast? That place is in one of the worst states in the entire DLC, and while Vanny's room is technically not in horrible shape, I'm trying to argue that the ending we see in Security Breach happens exactly, not just something similar happened. So what happened to Fragile Blast? Well, what if when Gregory beats Princess Quest 3, the Blob gets pissed off and destroys Blast, trying to find Vanessa and Gregory? A pretty common theory is that Burntrap took over the Blob after he got consumed, and I think Burntrap is basically just a physical version of Glitchtrap, due to Glitchtrap doing exactly what Burntrap does at the beginning of his ending in the Mascot ending. So that would explain why the Blob destroyed Blast specifically. And Burntrap being Glitchtrap would probably mean that he would have to be killed for Vanessa to be free. And if you think that wouldn't make sense because I just said Burntrap took over the Blob, Glitchtrap survived to help 1 2 and Vanessa was freed anyways, so I think it makes sense. Now, many people take Princess Quest not having a comic page as confirmation that the ending is the canon one, but I think it could mean something else. There are 8 comic pages in Ruin, and 5 endings that have one, which, if you do the math, means that some endings are going to have more pages than others. And most of the endings have 2, those being the VIP ending, the Van ending, and the Escape ending. But 2 endings only have 1 page, and those are the Vanny ending and the Burntrap ending. This seems very deliberate to do, because both endings have parts that would make for good comic pages, but they aren't. And in case you forgot, the Vanny ending takes the same path as the Princess Quest ending, but you press this button instead of play Princess Quest 3 if you don't know the first 2 that is. So the fact that the ending that is an alternate path to the Princess Quest ending is the only other one with a single comic page is really interesting. And if that seems weird, Ruin heavily implies that the Princess Quest ending did happen, but it doesn't directly contradict or support the Burntrap ending. So they need a way to make it implied. And even more similarities between the Burntrap and Princess Quest endings is that the ending screen with the characters on a hill seems to be on the same hill in both endings. As well as that, the Helpline 2 endings are similar to these 2 endings. The Princess Quest ending is obvious, but as I mentioned earlier, Glitchtrap is pretty much the same thing as Burntrap in their respective endings. So what if this is Scott and Sewell telling us that both the Burntrap ending and the Princess Quest endings are canon, without telling us that the Burntrap and Princess Quest endings are canon? I think there's a decent chance that's what happened. And you might think 2 canon endings is crazy, but that's actually happened quite a few times in FNaF. FNaF 1, 2, and 4 have all their endings being presumably canon, but admittedly, those are different. But what's not different is FNaF 3. Now, at first you might think that there has to be only one canon ending here, and since Mullen and MCI, a theory where all the missing kids' souls are in Mullen Freddy, is a popularly believed theory, the bad ending has to be canon. But actually, no. You see, in FNaF, the most lore-filled ending is the clock ending, and it has 5 minigames you have to do to get it. And what are those minigames? A setup for the Happiest Day minigames, which most likely means the FNaF 3 good ending did happen. And in Helpline 1, both the endings, being the Pizza Party ending and the door ending, seem to be canon. And with all that said, I don't think 2 canon endings is out of the picture. But now you see why I haven't really talked about Helpline 2 yet. You see, Princess Quest 4 isn't fully Princess Quest 4. It's Princess Quest Alpha. On the cabinet it's called Princess Quest 4, but on the start screen it's called Princess Quest Alpha. Now why is this important? Well, it can basically decide the canon ending of Security Breach. You see, there's 3 or more 2.5 major possibilities this means. 1, this is just an alpha for Princess Quest 4. 2, this is a scrapped alpha for Princess Quest 1, or 3, and this is why I said 2.5, this is an alpha for Princess Quest 1 reused for Princess Quest 4. So how does this solve the canon ending or endings of Security Breach? Well, like basically everything in this franchise, it's up to interpretation. If you take alpha as just an alpha for Princess Quest 4, it doesn't really change all too much except for potentially one thing, but I'll touch on that in a minute. But if you interpret it as one of the other 2, then the Security Breach Princess Quest ending probably can't be canon. You see, this is why we see Vanny at the end of Helpline 2's Princess Quest ending, and it is an alpha for the OG Princess Quest, then that would mean that Vanny would have never been freed, which means that the Security Breach Princess Quest ending couldn't have happened. And while I'm on Helpline 2, let me just quickly go over what I think the canon ending of that game is, especially since I've seen literally no discussion about it online. This is actually pretty simple, I'm not gonna lie. The Princess Quest ending has a lot of questions, such as if Glitchtrap is actually dead, would that mean that Helpy couldn't exist, what are we actually doing in the real world, and more. And guess what problems the Mascot ending brings up? Nothing, at least major. Yeah, pretty simple. But if I'm right, that means that Vanny could potentially be in the Pizzaplex in Ruin, but that could create some problems, so that's just an idea. Anyways, let me summarize this theory. Gregory learns about Princess Quest and the sinkhole from the notes scattered around the Pizzaplex and meets Princess Quest 1 and 2. When he goes to Blast, he goes to the vents and sees Vanny's hideout, which has Princess Quest 3. After defeating Monty, Chica, and Roxy, he goes onto the Roxy Raceway and into the sinkhole, beats Burntrap, and escapes, while Burntrap possesses the Blob. Gregory and Freddy sit on a hill peacefully, but decide to go back. They go into Blast, Freddy gets destroyed, and Gregory beats Princess Quest 3, setting Vanny free. They leave for good this time, while the Blob destroys Blast. Eventually, Cassie's dad goes back to the Pizzaplex, and he gets 6 Freddy Fazbear action figures, and they all form into a mashup of them all, but this piece is glitched back together, and Cassie's dad is forced to give his daughter the very thing that destroyed him. And also Vinny might be in there too, and Prototype Freddy still as weird as he was before. I'm pretty confident in this theory, although I 100% understand being skeptical of it. This is way bigger than my Shadow Freddy theory in basically every way. I learned a lot from this video, so I'm hoping that this is better. Comment your opinion, because I always like seeing other people's thoughts too. There's going to be a pinned comment with some stuff like corrections and new evidence for or against this theory, so if you have something for that and no one else has commented it, leave that down below too. Anyways, I don't really have anything else to put more time. Thanks for watching, like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe, and comment, because I think those do something good. I'd recommend following my Twitter account if you regularly use that hellhole, since I'm way more active on there. So thank you for watching, and goodbye until next year, because I guess my theories are annual.